She lashes out her crippled father when he failed to buy her a dream car, but her younger brother taught her a lesson, and she will never forget it in her entire life. Vanessa always believed that material success was the ultimate symbol of achievement. Growing up in a modest home where every penny was carefully accounted for, she nurtured dreams that soared far above the modest reality of her upbringing. The shimmering image of a sleek, luxurious car haunted her thoughts day and night, a tangible emblem of a life filled with possibilities, glamour, and unyielding confidence. In her mind, the car was more than a means of transportation. It was a beacon of freedom and self-worth, a way to rewrite the narrative of her small-town life. Her father, Jonathan, had long struggled with the limitations imposed by his disability. Once a hard-working man with an unyielding spirit, his body had betrayed him in ways that rendered him both physically fragile and financially limited. Still, he held a quiet dignity and an unwavering love for his children, always trying to provide the best he could despite the many obstacles. Jonathan's deep brown eyes often shone with determination, even as his hands trembled slightly from pain and exhaustion. Vanessa's older dreams clashed with the harsh reality of her father's condition. The more she learned about the world outside her cramped apartment, the more she longed for a life unburdened by financial constraints and physical limitations. Every advertisement, every glossy magazine spread of luxury cars and high-end lifestyles was a reminder of what she was missing. In school, she studied with the fervor of someone determined to escape the humdrum of her daily life, yet the dream car remained a symbol of a freedom that she felt was still out of reach. But behind her aspirations lay a simmering tension, one that she barely understood at the time. Her father's sacrifices, the long hours of low-paying work, the painful moments of self-doubt and defeat, were never enough to quench the yearning for the life she desired. Vanessa's heart burned with a mix of ambition and resentment, as if the glittering promise of the car was a promise of everything she wished her father could be. The silent, creeping voice of envy grew louder every time she saw a luxury vehicle pass by on the road, its engine purring like a forbidden melody. In the quiet evenings when the family sat down to share a humble meal, Vanessa's thoughts often drifted to the possibility of a different life. It was in these moments of introspection that the seeds of discontent were sown. The disparity between what she had and what she so desperately wanted festered, creating a tension that would soon burst into conflict. And as the days passed, that tension began to take on a shape of its own, a shape that would soon challenge the very foundation of the love and sacrifices that defined their family life. Vanessa's longing for the luxury car was not merely about status. It was a yearning to be part of a world that seemed tantalizingly close yet forever out of reach. Each morning as she prepared for school, she would imagine herself cruising in that perfect car, the wind tousling her hair, and a sense of invincibility radiating from her. The vivid image of the car became an obsession, and its allure seeped into every aspect of her daily routine. Even in the classroom, while her peers discussed weekend plans or trivial gossip, Vanessa's mind drifted to the sleek lines and powerful engine of her dream machine. The teacher's lessons blurred into the background as she mentally rehearsed the sensation of freedom that the car represented. Yet in the back of her mind, a persistent whisper of discontent told her that her father's meager earnings were a barrier, one that symbolized the limitations of her current life. At home, the contrast was stark. The small, dimly lit apartment was filled with the gentle hum of everyday struggles, bills piling up on the kitchen counter, outdated furniture that had seen better days, and a silence that often spoke volumes about financial strain. Jonathan's worn-out wheelchair was a constant reminder of the sacrifices he had made. Despite his unwavering commitment to his children, he was unable to shield them from the hardships life had thrown their way. His once vibrant laughter had been replaced by a soft, resigned smile, one that masked the pain of unmet dreams and the burden of unspoken regrets. Vanessa's inner turmoil was compounded by the contrast between her dreams and her reality. Every time she caught a glimpse of a luxury car in a magazine or on the street, a wave of bitterness washed over her. She resented the very idea that the opulent life she envisioned was attainable by others, but remained stubbornly out of reach for her family. The car became a symbol of all the things she believed her father had failed to provide, a world of opportunities, prestige, and recognition that was his to grant but never did. Her thoughts were punctuated by moments of raw frustration. Vanessa would pace her room, her eyes filled with determination and defiance, vowing that one day she would leave this life behind. The desire to prove herself, to show that she was capable of rising above the circumstances of her birth, grew stronger with each passing day. Yet, deep within her lay an unspoken sadness, a quiet mourning for the family bonds that were slowly fraying under the weight of unmet expectations and harsh realities. As she lay awake at night, the image of the car would dance in her mind, a symbol of hope and a source of pain, intermingling in a bittersweet symphony of desire and despair. In that liminal space between dreams and reality, Vanessa's resolve hardened. The world outside was vast, and she was determined to seize it, even if it meant challenging the very foundation of her family's fragile existence. The days that followed were marked by a growing sense of urgency in Vanessa's heart, a desire to break free from the confines of a life that seemed to hold her back. The tension between what she wanted and what she had was no longer a quiet undercurrent. It had erupted into a turbulent storm within her. Every conversation at home, every fleeting moment of silence, was charged with unspoken frustration and unmet expectations. One rainy afternoon, when the skies wept in sympathy with her inner sorrow, Vanessa found herself lost in a haze of thoughts. The sound of raindrops tapping against the window became a rhythmic reminder of the passing time, a relentless march toward an unknown future. In the midst of this introspection, she recalled a conversation she had overheard at school. Friends had spoken of the latest luxury models, of deals struck in high-end showrooms, and of the glamorous lives led by those who possessed such treasures. To Vanessa, these conversations were a clarion call, a challenge to the limitations imposed upon her by her humble background. Her thoughts turned to her father, whose gentle demeanor had always masked the pain of his struggles. Jonathan's inability to provide the car was not born out of a lack of love or effort, but rather the harsh reality of his condition. Yet in Vanessa's eyes, it was an unforgivable shortcoming, a betrayal of her dreams. The more she dwelled on this perceived failure, the more her feelings of resentment festered. In the confines of their tiny living room, surrounded by memories of better times, she began to build a narrative of blame. The realization that her father's physical limitations were the source of her frustration was both painful and liberating. For the first time, Vanessa saw their world through a lens tinted by bitterness, a lens that transformed every act of kindness into a missed opportunity. The gentle encouragement in her father's soft-spoken words was reinterpreted as a sign of weakness, and his cautious optimism was mistaken for complacency. As the shadows of doubt crept into her heart, Vanessa began to distance herself from the man who had always been her protector. This internal unraveling reached its climax when, one fateful evening, an argument ignited like a wildfire in the suffocating heat of suppressed emotions. The family's modest dining room became the stage for a confrontation that would forever alter the course of their lives. Vanessa's voice, sharp and unyielding, filled the air as she unleashed years of pent-up anger. In her eyes, the car was not merely a luxury. It was a symbol of everything that her father's perceived inadequacies had cost her. The bitter words spilled forth, each one a dagger aimed at the heart of the man who had sacrificed so much for her. As the echoes of her tirade faded into the oppressive silence of the night, Vanessa was left alone with the chilling realization that the gap between dreams and reality had never seemed wider. In that painful moment of confrontation, the fragile fabric of their family began to tear, setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to heartbreak, redemption, and an enduring lesson in love and sacrifice. The confrontation that erupted in the dim light of that fateful evening left an indelible mark on everyone present. Vanessa, overwhelmed by a cocktail of anger and disappointment, hurled words that cut deeper than any physical blow. The dining room, once a place of shared meals and quiet conversation, now bore witness to the raw, unfiltered pain of a daughter who felt betrayed by the limitations of her own flesh and blood. Jonathan sat at the table, his eyes glistening with unshed tears as he absorbed the harsh reality of his daughter's accusations. Each word was like a shard of glass, piercing the remnants of the pride he still held for the family he had built with so much effort. In that moment, the man who had always been the rock of their small world seemed utterly vulnerable, his spirit bruised by the scorn of someone he loved more than life itself. The air was thick with silence after Vanessa's outburst, a silence so heavy that it threatened to suffocate the very essence of their familial bond. Jonathan's hands trembled as he slowly reached out to gather the scattered remnants of the broken dinnerware, a silent testament to the fragility of the moment. His disability had always made everyday tasks a struggle, but tonight it felt as though every action was laced with the bitter sting of defeat. The clink of porcelain against the hardwood floor echoed the sound of Vanessa's shattered dreams, a sound that resonated long after the moment had passed. In the midst of this emotional wreckage, Stephen, the quiet and observant 12-year-old of the family, watched with wide, sorrowful eyes. While Vanessa's fury had been directed at their father's perceived failures, Stephen's heart ached for the man who had silently borne the weight of every sacrifice. Despite his tender age, he understood more than most that love was not measured in grand gestures or material possessions. For him, the true value of their father's efforts lay in the daily acts of care, the gentle smile, the reassuring pat on the back, the whispered words of comfort in the dead of night. After the anger had subsided and the echoes of harsh words faded into a painful stillness, Stephen quietly slipped away from the chaos. He carried with him a small, weathered jar filled with coins, savings he had accumulated over months, each coin a symbol of his modest hopes for a better future. That night, as the family lay in the uneasy quiet of their home, the jar became a silent promise that even in the midst of heartbreak, small acts of love could mend even the deepest wounds. Jonathan's eyes, red and puffy from unshed tears, met Stephen's across the room. In that silent exchange, an unspoken understanding passed between them, a shared recognition that despite the bitter words and shattered illusions, there remained a flicker of hope. For Jonathan, it was the quiet resilience of his children, especially the unexpected compassion of his youngest. And for Stephen, it was the realization that love could flourish even in the face of immense hardship. The night stretched on, heavy with regret and the promise of redemption. Vanessa, lying awake and brooding over the fallout of her anger, began to sense that her actions had precipitated something irrevocable. Though her heart was still brimming with resentment, a tiny seed of doubt was sown, questioning whether her vision of a perfect life was worth the pain inflicted on those who loved her unconditionally. The breaking point had been reached, but in the quiet aftermath, the potential for healing lingered like the first light of dawn. In the days following the heated confrontation, the atmosphere in the household was suffused with a tentative quiet. Vanessa found herself wandering the familiar hallways of her home, her footsteps echoing softly, as if in mourning for the irreparable damage done. Each room seemed to whisper memories of happier times, of shared laughter, gentle embraces, and quiet moments of familial unity that now felt like relics of a past long lost. Vanessa's mind was a turbulent mix of anger and regret. She replayed the hurtful words over and over, unable to escape the haunting echoes of her voice. Yet, amidst the lingering bitterness, there was a budding sense of uncertainty, a faint, almost imperceptible glimmer of compassion that began to take root. The incident had shaken her deeply, forcing her to confront the stark reality of the sacrifices her father had made and the price of her own ambition. Jonathan, ever the quiet soul burdened by his physical limitations, carried on with his daily routine, his movements slow and deliberate. Every task was a reminder of the challenges he faced, but also a testament to his unwavering determination to provide for his children. Even as the weight of Vanessa's accusations pressed heavily on his heart, he found solace in the small acts of kindness that punctuated his days, a warm cup of tea prepared for Stephen, a soft smile shared with Vanessa in moments of fleeting clarity. Stephen, in his quiet wisdom, became a silent pillar of strength during this tumultuous period. His young eyes, which had witnessed the raw pain of that unforgettable evening, now shone with a gentle resolve. Determined to mend the fragile threads of their family, he began to orchestrate small acts of reconciliation. One morning, as the sun's first rays crept through the thin curtains of their modest living room, Stephen carefully opened the jar that contained his humble savings. Each coin inside was a testament to his belief that even the smallest contributions could help heal the wounds that ran deep. He approached Jonathan with a tentative smile, holding out the jar with a sincerity that transcended words. "Dad," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of something far greater than his years, "if I had more, I'd buy you a better wheelchair, Dad." The simplicity of his words was a poignant reminder of what truly mattered, a heart that loved unconditionally, regardless of material wealth or physical limitations. In that moment, the air seemed to shift. The silence that had settled over the house began to give way to the gentle stirrings of forgiveness and understanding. Vanessa, standing in the doorway with tears welling in her eyes, felt the gravity of Stephen's gesture pull her away from the bitterness that had consumed her. The realization that love could be expressed in the smallest of actions washed over her, softening the hardened edges of her resentment. As the day unfolded, the family moved slowly toward a tentative reconciliation. Jonathan's eyes, now glistening with both sorrow and hope, met Vanessa's as if silently pleading for a second chance. The act of compassion from Stephen, simple yet profound, had illuminated the path to healing, a path that required forgiveness, understanding, and the courage to acknowledge one's own shortcomings. In the quiet hours of that transformative day, Vanessa began to see that her dream of a luxury car had blinded her to the true treasures that lay within her family. The glimmer of compassion ignited by her brother's small but powerful act became the first step on a journey toward redemption, a journey that would test the bonds of love and ultimately redefine the meaning of wealth, not in terms of material possessions, but in the priceless currency of familial devotion. In the wake of that life-changing morning, a profound silence settled over the household, a silence laden with regret, reflection, and the bittersweet promise of reconciliation. Vanessa found herself adrift in a sea of emotions, her mind a turbulent blend of sorrow, guilt, and the slowly emerging realization of her own shortcomings. The harsh words of the previous night echoed in her thoughts, each syllable a reminder of how deeply she had wounded the man who had given everything for her. Every corner of the modest home carried memories of her father's unwavering support, a support that had been taken for granted in the heat of anger and frustration. As she walked past the faded family photographs on the wall, Vanessa's gaze lingered on the images of happier times, when laughter filled the rooms and love was the unspoken language shared between them. In those moments, she recalled the gentle, patient way her father had guided her through life's challenges, always believing that her potential was limitless despite their limited means. The burden of regret grew heavier with each passing day, and Vanessa found it increasingly difficult to ignore the stark contrast between her idealized dreams and the harsh realities of her existence. The dream car, once a symbol of unattainable luxury, now served as a painful reminder of the rift that had opened between her and the man who had so selflessly tried to provide for them. The opulent fantasy that had fueled her ambition now loomed as a specter of lost innocence and misguided priorities. Jonathan, though wounded by his daughter's harsh words, bore his own sorrow with a quiet grace. Each morning, as he navigated the challenges of his disability, his stoic determination was tempered by the subtle ache of unmet dreams. The world outside might have celebrated luxury and success, but within the walls of their home, the true measure of wealth was found in small acts of love, a love that had been momentarily obscured by Vanessa's anger. Stephen, too, sensed the gravity of the situation. His wise eyes watched silently as Vanessa grappled with the enormity of her actions. Despite being only 12 years old, he understood that sometimes the most profound lessons in life came not from grand declarations, but from humble acts of kindness. His decision to offer his small savings to his father had set in motion a chain reaction of remorse and introspection, a lesson in humility that was slowly seeping into the hearts of everyone in the family. One evening, As the family sat together in the dim glow of a single lamp, Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. The room was filled with an unspoken tension, a mixture of hope and sorrow, as if the very air vibrated with the promise of change. In that moment, she mustered the courage to speak, her voice trembling as she broke the heavy silence. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words barely audible against the backdrop of her remorse. The apology was not just for the hurtful words she had spoken, but for every moment of ungratefulness that had blinded her to the sacrifices made on her behalf. Jonathan's weathered face softened as he listened to his daughter's confession. Though the pain of her words lingered, there was a quiet relief in knowing that the bridge between them was beginning to mend. The regret that had weighed so heavily on Vanessa's heart was now being transformed into a desire to make amends, a desire to rediscover the meaning of family, love, and sacrifice. In the ensuing days, Vanessa made a conscious effort to rebuild the fragile threads of trust that had been torn apart. She found solace in simple acts of service, helping her father with his daily tasks, listening attentively to his quiet stories of perseverance, and sharing moments of genuine laughter that gradually replaced the echoes of past hurt. The weight of regret, though still palpable, began to lighten as she realized that true redemption lay in acknowledging one's mistakes and learning from them. Each step she took toward forgiveness was imbued with the gentle wisdom of her little brother's sacrifice, a silent reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures could carry the greatest weight. And as the days turned into weeks, Vanessa slowly began to understand that while the dream car had once represented the pinnacle of luxury, the real treasure was the love that bound them together, resilient in the face of life's most challenging obstacles. In the months that followed, the atmosphere in the household shifted imperceptibly, like the soft change of seasons. Vanessa embarked on an inward journey, one marked by introspection and the slow but steady transformation of her character. The fiery ambition that had once defined her was gradually tempered by an emerging compassion, a recognition that true wealth was not measured in the sleek lines of a luxury car, but in the quiet sacrifices made for love. Each morning, Vanessa rose with a newfound determination to make amends. The lingering bitterness that had once clouded her every thought was being replaced by a gentle resolve to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. Her relationship with Jonathan, though still fragile, began to show signs of healing. Every shared smile and tentative conversation became a small victory, a testament to the resilience of familial bonds even in the wake of profound pain. Jonathan, despite the scars etched into his heart, embraced this transformation with a cautious optimism. His eyes, once dull with resignation, now held a glimmer of hope as he watched his daughter slowly reconnect with the man who had always tried to shield her from life's harsh realities. The simple acts of kindness, Vanessa assisting him with daily chores, her thoughtful questions about his past struggles, and the quiet moments of shared laughter, served as gentle reminders of a love that had never truly been lost. Stephen, whose quiet wisdom had catalyzed this metamorphosis, became an ever-present source of inspiration. His small jar of coins, once a symbol of unspoken sacrifice, now stood as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the most modest gestures could spark profound change. The young boy, with his innocent eyes and unwavering sincerity, had unwittingly set in motion a process of redemption that was slowly redefining the contours of their family's existence. As Vanessa navigated this new phase of her life, she began to see the world through a lens of empathy and gratitude. The dream car, once the focal point of her aspirations, lost its luster as she realized that the life she had taken for granted was far richer than any material possession could ever be. In its place, she discovered a deep appreciation for the everyday miracles that had always surrounded her: the warmth of a shared meal, the quiet strength of a parent's love, and the unspoken understanding that bound them together in times of adversity. One crisp autumn afternoon, while walking through the park with Jonathan and Stephen, Vanessa felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. The rustling of the fallen leaves, the gentle murmur of the wind, and the quiet laughter of passers-by all seemed to coalesce into a symphony of life, a melody that celebrated the resilience of the human spirit. In that moment, she vowed to honor the sacrifices that had shaped her, to never again let envy or pride blind her to the beauty of her own story. The transformation was not instantaneous, nor was it without setbacks. There were days when the old wounds flared up, when the allure of a different life seemed too tempting to resist. Yet each time, Vanessa found herself drawn back to the quiet wisdom of Stephen's actions and the enduring love in her father's eyes. The journey toward redemption was a winding path, marked by both triumphs and stumbles. But with every step, she grew more certain that the real luxury lay in the strength of her family's bond. In the quiet corners of her heart, Vanessa nurtured the belief that forgiveness was the most powerful force of all, a force capable of healing even the deepest scars. And as the days stretched into months, the painful memories of the past began to blend with the promise of a brighter future, one where love, sacrifice, and understanding would guide them through life's most challenging obstacles. As winter descended upon their small town, the chill in the air mirrored the cautious distance that had once separated Vanessa from her family. The cold nights brought with them long hours of introspection, during which every creak of the old house and every gust of icy wind seemed to whisper memories of a fractured past. Determined to reconstruct the bonds that had been damaged by harsh words and misguided ambition, Vanessa embarked on a mission to reconnect with both her father and her little brother, one heartfelt gesture at a time. Jonathan, whose resilience had been the quiet backbone of the family for years, noticed the subtle changes in Vanessa's demeanor. Though the wounds of their recent conflicts were still tender, he began to see sparks of his daughter's old warmth in her actions. Every morning, as the first light of dawn seeped through the curtains, Vanessa would join him at the breakfast table, where the aroma of freshly brewed tea and toasted bread filled the room with a sense of homecoming. These small moments, shared smiles over a simple meal, gentle inquiries about the weather, and soft laughter over shared memories, became the building blocks of a slow but steady reconciliation. Stephen, whose tender heart had been the catalyst for change, continued to serve as the silent mediator between the two. His quiet presence and unwavering support were like the gentle embrace of a long-forgotten melody, a reminder that even in the midst of hardship, love could always find a way to heal. The jar of coins, once a symbol of sacrifice, now stood proudly on the mantel as a testament to the power of small, meaningful gestures. It was a beacon of hope that reminded them all that even the most modest contributions could spark a process of profound healing. In the wake of the bitter confrontation that had once torn their family apart, Vanessa began to open up about the pressures and disappointments that had fueled her anger. Late at night, when the house was quiet and the weight of solitude pressed heavily upon her, she found herself speaking softly to Jonathan, sharing her fears, her dreams, and the deep-seated insecurities that had driven her to lash out. The conversation was not easy, nor was it always filled with immediate forgiveness, but it was a necessary step toward rebuilding the trust that had been lost. Over time, the dialogue between father and daughter grew more frequent and sincere. Jonathan, with his gentle wisdom and patient understanding, began to explain the hardships he had endured, stories of missed opportunities, of battles fought against the inevitable limitations imposed by his condition, and of the quiet determination that had kept him going despite everything. In those moments, Vanessa's heart softened as she began to understand that the struggles her father faced were not a sign of weakness, but of an unyielding strength that she had long overlooked. As the winter days gradually turned into the tender promises of spring, the family found themselves united by a shared commitment to healing. Each day, Vanessa made a conscious effort to appreciate the small acts of kindness that defined their lives, a touch on the shoulder, a shared laugh over a silly joke, and the unspoken understanding that in a world of fleeting material dreams, the true luxury lay in the strength of their bond. The process of reconstruction was neither swift nor free of setbacks, but with each passing day, the cracks in their relationship began to mend, revealing a foundation of love and respect that was stronger than ever before. In the gentle embrace of a blossoming spring morning, as flowers began to paint the landscape with vibrant hues, Vanessa stood beside Jonathan and Stephen, her heart filled with a newfound gratitude. The journey of rebuilding had been long and arduous, but in the quiet moments of togetherness, she rediscovered the enduring truth that the greatest treasures in life were the people who loved her unconditionally. And as they looked toward the future, the scars of the past served as a powerful reminder that every act of love, no matter how small, could pave the way for a brighter tomorrow. With the arrival of summer, a palpable energy filled the air, a vibrant promise of renewal, and the chance to move beyond old regrets. Vanessa felt that same stirring in her soul, a desire to redeem herself and honor the sacrifices that had long defined her family's existence. The past, though it still cast long shadows, was slowly being illuminated by the light of understanding and forgiveness. Each day, as she ventured out into the sunlit world, Vanessa was determined to prove that she could be more than the sum of her mistakes. Her journey of redemption began with small, deliberate actions. Vanessa sought ways to actively contribute to the family's well-being, not through grand declarations or expensive gifts, but through genuine care and consistent support. She spent her mornings helping Jonathan with his medication and organizing his schedule, ensuring that his days were filled with a sense of purpose and routine. In the quiet moments of shared silence, she found solace in the simple fact that their lives were intertwined by a love that transcended material wealth. Jonathan, whose heart had long borne the scars of unmet expectations, began to see the transformation in his daughter's eyes. The once fierce determination was now tempered by a gentle humility, a recognition that the path to true fulfillment lay not in external validation, but in the quiet moments of shared understanding. He recalled the days when he had struggled to provide even the most basic comforts, and now, watching Vanessa's heartfelt efforts, he felt a renewed sense of pride and gratitude for the daughter who had finally learned to see beyond her own desires. Stephen, always the silent observer, continued to be a guiding light in their lives. His youthful wisdom, expressed through small yet meaningful gestures, served as a constant reminder that redemption was not about grand gestures, but the accumulation of countless small moments of compassion and care. Vanessa began to emulate his gentle spirit, taking time to listen to his stories, to laugh at his innocent jokes, and to cherish the quiet moments that bridged the gap between a troubled past and a hopeful future. One sultry afternoon, as the heat of summer pressed down on the neighborhood, Vanessa found herself sitting with her father on the creaking wooden steps of their small porch. The soft hum of cicadas and the distant chatter of neighbors created a gentle backdrop as they talked about everything and nothing. Memories of a long-ago summer, the challenges of daily life, and the subtle joys that often went unnoticed in the rush of existence. In that quiet communion, Vanessa's heart swelled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She realized that the road to redemption was paved with forgiveness, both of others and of oneself. The transformation was not merely internal. Vanessa began to engage with the world around her in ways that reflected her renewed perspective. She volunteered at local community centers, helped organize small fundraisers for those in need, and used every opportunity to bridge the gap between her own dreams and the reality of those who truly mattered. Her actions spoke louder than any past grievances, resonating with the quiet strength of a woman who had finally found her true calling. As the summer days gradually yielded to the mellow approach of early autumn, the family's bonds grew stronger. Vanessa's journey of redemption had become a testament to the power of forgiveness and the enduring strength of love. With each passing day, she was reminded that every moment was a chance to rebuild, to heal, and to celebrate the small victories that together formed the tapestry of their shared lives. And in the fading light of a summer sunset, as the cool breeze whispered promises of a new beginning, Vanessa embraced the future with open arms, a future defined not by the material trappings of a dream car, but by the priceless gift of family and the redemptive power of love. As autumn deepened, casting long shadows over the golden-hued landscape, Vanessa felt an urgency to forge a new path, one that honored both the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. The crisp air carried with it a sense of renewal, and in that transition, Vanessa discovered a reservoir of strength she never knew she possessed. Determined to leave behind the echoes of bitterness, she embarked on a mission to redefine her identity not by what she lacked, but by the love and resilience that had always been the true foundation of her life. The transformation was gradual yet profound. Vanessa started by engaging more deeply with the community that had once been an afterthought in her quest for personal glory. She began volunteering at a local shelter, offering support to those struggling with hardships similar to the ones her family had endured. In the act of giving, she discovered a new sense of fulfillment, a realization that the true luxury in life was the ability to make a difference in someone else's world. At home, Vanessa and Jonathan established new routines that were built on mutual respect and understanding. Mornings were now filled with shared moments of quiet reflection and soft conversations over breakfast. Jonathan, whose eyes had always held a quiet wisdom, would recount stories of his own youth, tales of perseverance, of small victories that had paved the way for a life defined by dignity rather than material wealth. These stories, told in hushed tones and interspersed with moments of laughter, slowly helped Vanessa see the true value of her father's sacrifices. Even Stephen, whose small gestures had sparked the initial change, took on a larger role as both a confidant and a mentor to his older sister. In the soft glow of autumn evenings, as the family gathered around a modest table for dinner, Stephen would share his own observations about kindness, generosity, and the importance of cherishing the present. His words, though spoken with the simplicity of a child, carried the weight of profound truths that resonated deeply with Vanessa. In a quiet corner of a community center one cool evening, Vanessa organized a small workshop focused on resilience and community support. It was there that she shared her own story, not as a tale of unbridled ambition, but as a journey of redemption, of learning that every setback carried within it the seeds of a new beginning. The workshop, attended by individuals from all walks of life, became a powerful symbol of the transformative power of empathy and understanding. Vanessa spoke passionately about the importance of forgiving oneself and others, urging everyone present to look beyond the superficial trappings of success. As the leaves turned from gold to deep burgundy, the transformation within Vanessa blossomed into a radiant display of inner strength. She learned to value the quiet moments, a shared cup of tea with Jonathan, a spontaneous laugh with Stephen, the comforting embrace of a friend, and to see them as the true markers of a life well lived. The dream car, once a distant and alluring fantasy, had faded into the background, replaced by the vibrant tapestry of human connections that now defined her existence. The road ahead was still uncertain, and Vanessa knew that the journey of self-discovery and forgiveness was far from over. Yet in that moment, as she walked hand in hand with her family through the crisp autumn air, she felt an unwavering conviction that the future held endless possibilities. The new path she was forging was one of compassion, resilience, and the enduring strength of familial love, a path that promised not just redemption, but a celebration of every small, meaningful victory along the way. With winter's chill beginning to seep into the edges of autumn's fading warmth, Vanessa found herself confronting echoes of the past that had long lingered like ghosts in the corridors of her memory. The transformation she had so painstakingly nurtured was now being tested by the inevitable return of old doubts and lingering regrets. It was during these reflective moments that Vanessa realized how deeply the scars of past mistakes could resurface, even as she strove to embrace a future filled with hope and redemption. Late one evening, as snowflakes danced softly outside the frosted windows, Vanessa sat alone in her room surrounded by relics of her childhood, a faded photograph of happier times, a well-worn teddy bear once cherished by Stephen, and an old, tattered notebook containing fragments of memories that had once defined her. The quiet solitude of that night was a stark reminder that no matter how far one advanced on the path of forgiveness, the past was never truly behind. It was woven into the very fabric of one's being. In that stillness, Vanessa allowed herself to revisit the tumultuous moments that had set her life on a new course, the harsh confrontation that had shattered her illusions, the searing pain of her father's unspoken sorrow, and the gentle yet profound lesson imparted by her 12-year-old brother. Each memory was a double-edged sword, painful yet essential, a necessary reminder of where she had been and how far she had come. Jonathan, too, grappled with the ghosts of yesteryear. His gentle eyes, now reflecting both wisdom and a quiet sadness, told stories of years filled with struggles and unfulfilled dreams. The winter evenings often found him in quiet contemplation, revisiting the sacrifices he had made in the hope that his family would one day find the happiness he had always envisioned. His thoughts were a mixture of regret and pride, the regret of dreams deferred, and the pride of witnessing the gradual healing of a fractured bond. Stephen, ever the quiet guardian of their family's legacy, sensed the weight of those recollections. Despite his tender age, he carried an innate understanding that the past was as much a part of one's identity as the present. In his own quiet way, he sought to soothe the lingering pain, offering small tokens of affection, a hand-drawn picture here, a comforting hug there, that served as bridges between the memories of what had been and the hope of what could be. In the midst of this reflective solitude, Vanessa made a conscious decision to honor the past not by clinging to its sorrow, but by using its lessons as stepping stones toward a more compassionate future. She began to write in a journal, pouring out her thoughts and emotions in a way that was raw, unfiltered, and deeply cathartic. Each entry became a testament to her journey, a reminder that while the past could never be erased, it could be transformed into a source of strength and wisdom. Slowly, the act of writing became a healing ritual for Vanessa. She would sit by the window on cold winter mornings, watching as the world outside was blanketed in white, and allow herself to process the myriad emotions that stirred within her. The words on the page were both a confession and a prayer, a plea for forgiveness, and a declaration of the newfound resolve that had begun to define her life. Through this process, Vanessa discovered that the echoes of the past, though sometimes painful, were not meant to haunt her. Instead, they served as gentle reminders of the impermanence of regret and the transformative power of resilience. The memories that once threatened to shackle her spirit were gradually reinterpreted as lessons in love, sacrifice, and the enduring strength of family. And so, as winter deepened and the quiet world outside lay in a hushed slumber, Vanessa embraced her past with all its complexities. In doing so, she found the courage to let go of old burdens, to accept the imperfections of a life that was still unfolding, and to move forward with a heart that had been tempered by the flames of regret and reborn in the warmth of forgiveness. As the first hints of spring began to stir beneath winter's icy grip, Vanessa sensed that the time had come for another bold step in her journey toward healing. The cold months had allowed her to confront the painful echoes of her past and to rediscover the quiet strength that lay buried within her. Now, with the promise of renewal on the horizon, she was determined to bridge the final gaps that had long separated her from the family she so deeply loved. It started with a simple gesture, one that carried the weight of many unspoken apologies and the hope of a new beginning. One bright, dewy morning, Vanessa found herself in the modest kitchen, preparing a meal for the family with a tenderness that belied the turbulent emotions of recent times. Each slice of bread, every carefully measured spice, was a small act of love, a tangible reminder that true healing often began with the simplest of actions. Jonathan, who had been quietly observing his daughter's renewed sense of purpose, felt a gentle stirring of hope in his heart. The familiar aroma of freshly baked bread and simmering stew filled the air, mingling with memories of past hardships and shared laughter. In that quiet moment, as the family gathered around the table, Vanessa's efforts spoke louder than any words of contrition ever could. The act of cooking was her way of saying, without the need for grand gestures, that she was committed to rebuilding the bonds that had been strained by anger and misunderstanding. Stephen, with his wide, knowing eyes, sensed the significance of that morning. In his youthful innocence, he understood that sometimes the most profound changes were signaled not by dramatic revelations, but by quiet, sincere gestures that touched the heart. His smile, a gentle curve of pure, unburdened joy, was the silent affirmation that every step toward healing, no matter how small, was a step in the right direction. After the meal, As the family sat together to share in the warmth of food and conversation, Vanessa mustered the courage to speak from her heart. In a voice that trembled with both vulnerability and determination, she acknowledged the pain of the past and expressed her sincere regret for the harsh words and misguided expectations that had driven a wedge between them. "I realize now that I've been so focused on what I thought I deserved that I forgot to see all that you've given me," she said softly, her eyes searching her father's for the forgiveness she so desperately sought. Jonathan's eyes, glistening with unshed tears, met hers, and in that silent exchange, the love that had always defined their relationship shone through. The moment was fragile, yet it carried the promise of mending, a promise that was nurtured by every shared glance, every gentle touch, every word of forgiveness that filled the room. Vanessa's apology was not a mere formality. It was a heartfelt acknowledgement of the sacrifices that had been made for her, a recognition that true healing was possible only when one learned to appreciate the intangible treasures of family love. In the days that followed, Vanessa continued to build on that fragile moment of reconciliation. She started small, helping her father with daily chores, spending quiet evenings talking with Stephen about dreams and aspirations, and even volunteering at community events where she could give back in ways that no luxury car ever could. Each act of kindness, every effort to bridge the gap between her past mistakes and her future hopes, was a step toward a more harmonious family life. As spring unfurled in a burst of color and life, Vanessa began to see that the path to healing was not a straight line, but a winding journey filled with both setbacks and breakthroughs. The bitterness that had once consumed her was gradually replaced by a deep sense of gratitude, a gratitude for the quiet sacrifices of a father, the gentle wisdom of a brother, and the endless capacity of the human heart to forgive and to heal. In that season of renewal, Vanessa realized that true healing was an ongoing process, a process that required patience, persistence, and the courage to embrace one's own imperfections. And so, with every sunrise and every shared meal, she took one more step toward a future where love, understanding, and forgiveness would define not just her family, but the very essence of her life. As summer's warmth returned once again, Vanessa found herself immersed in a renewed appreciation for the connections that had long defined her world. The trials and tribulations of the past months had revealed the undeniable power of love and forgiveness, a lesson that resonated in every shared smile and every gentle embrace exchanged among the family. Vanessa's journey was far from over, yet each day brought a deeper understanding that the true luxury in life was not measured by material possessions, but by the strength of the bonds that tied them together. The neighborhood, too, seemed to respond to the transformation in Vanessa. Neighbors who had once regarded her with a mixture of pity and curiosity now greeted her with genuine warmth. Invitations to community gatherings, potluck dinners, and local celebrations became more frequent, and Vanessa embraced these moments with a heartfelt gratitude. It was in these shared experiences that she discovered a renewed sense of belonging, a realization that the world was filled with countless opportunities to forge meaningful connections. At home, the transformation was even more evident. The once tense atmosphere of the household had given way to a quiet serenity, a space where laughter could be heard without the shadow of past grievances. Jonathan's eyes, once heavy with the weight of unspoken sorrow, now sparkled with the joy of seeing his family come together. His stories, told over long evenings by the fire, became cherished moments of wisdom and shared history that reinforced the value of perseverance and love. Stephen, whose small jar of coins had once symbolized the quiet sacrifice that sparked so much change, had grown in more ways than one. His youthful exuberance and unwavering belief in the goodness of people shone through in every interaction. Whether it was helping a neighbor with a heavy load or sharing a spontaneous joke with a passerby, his actions reminded everyone that kindness was the most powerful force in a world often marred by hardship. One sultry evening, as the family gathered for a neighborhood barbecue in the local park, Vanessa felt a profound sense of connection that transcended the boundaries of her own troubled past. The vibrant laughter of children, the shared stories of neighbors, and the warm glow of the setting sun all converged to create a tapestry of community spirit. In that moment, Vanessa understood that the true measure of wealth was not found in the gleam of polished metal, but in the myriad small acts of kindness that connected every soul in the gathering. The evening became a celebration of life itself, a reminder that every shared moment, every smile exchanged, was a building block of a community defined by compassion and resilience. Vanessa moved through the crowd, engaging in heartfelt conversations and extending the same warmth to those she once viewed as strangers. The barriers of isolation that had once seemed insurmountable were gradually dissolving in the face of genuine connection. As the night deepened, Vanessa found herself in quiet conversation with an elderly neighbor who had lived in the community for decades. The neighbor spoke of bygone days, of hardships and triumphs that had shaped the very essence of their shared history. In those soft, measured words, Vanessa discovered a wealth of wisdom, a reminder that every life, regardless of its struggles, held a unique and invaluable story. The power of connection, she realized, was transformative. It could heal wounds, mend broken hearts, and create a sense of belonging that was far more enduring than any fleeting material possession. That night, as she walked home under a sky blanketed with stars, Vanessa felt a deep and abiding gratitude for the journey that had led her to this moment. The scars of the past were still visible, but they had been transformed into badges of honor, symbols of a life lived with resilience, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to the bonds that defined her. As autumn approached once more, painting the world in hues of amber and gold, Vanessa's heart brimmed with hope for the future, a future reimagined through the lens of forgiveness, love, and the unbreakable bonds of family. The tumultuous journey that had begun with bitter resentment and harsh words had evolved into a tapestry of healing and transformation, woven together by the quiet sacrifices of a loving father and the gentle wisdom of a young brother. In the soft glow of an autumn afternoon, Vanessa found herself reflecting on the many lessons learned along the way. The luxury car that had once symbolized an unattainable dream now seemed trivial compared to the immeasurable wealth of the relationships that had defined her life. Each memory, both painful and beautiful, had played a role in reshaping her identity, guiding her toward a deeper understanding of what it truly meant to love and be loved. Determined to embrace this future fully, Vanessa began to pursue opportunities that allowed her to give back to the community. She enrolled in courses at the local community college, not just to further her education, but to equip herself with the skills necessary to make a positive impact on the lives of others. Every lecture, every late-night study session was a step toward a new beginning, a chance to redefine herself beyond the shadows of past mistakes. At home, the transformation was palpable. The family's once fractured dynamic had evolved into a source of strength, a safe haven where each member's unique contributions were celebrated. Jonathan, whose gentle guidance had always been the cornerstone of their family, now shared his life's wisdom with renewed pride. He spent evenings recounting stories of resilience and perseverance, reminding Vanessa and Stephen that every challenge had the potential to become a stepping stone toward something greater. Stephen, now more confident and understanding than ever, continued to be the light that shone in the darkest of moments. His quiet acts of kindness, whether helping a neighbor or simply offering a word of encouragement, had become the unspoken glue that held the family together. Together, they forged a future that was defined not by what they lacked, but by the endless possibilities that lay before them. One particularly memorable day, as the family strolled through a bustling autumn fair, Vanessa experienced a moment of clarity. Amid the vibrant colors and joyful sounds, she realized that her journey had been a series of small, deliberate choices, each one a step toward a future built on love, forgiveness, and the enduring power of human connection. The fair, with its mixture of laughter and lively music, became a metaphor for her own transformation, a celebration of life's beauty, even in the face of past adversity. Standing beneath a canopy of twinkling lights as dusk settled, Vanessa made a silent promise to herself and to those she loved. She vowed to embrace the future with open arms, to cherish every small moment, and to honor the sacrifices that had paved the way for her redemption. The future was not an abstract dream, but a tangible reality shaped by the choices made in the quiet corners of everyday life. As the evening wore on, and the fair's laughter mingled with the soft whispers of the wind, Vanessa felt a deep sense of peace, a peace born from the knowledge that she was no longer defined by her past mistakes, but by the strength of her newfound purpose. With each step she took, hand in hand with her father and brother, she embraced the promise of a future that was as rich in love and compassion as it was in hope. In the gentle twilight of a crisp winter evening, as the first snowflakes began to descend and transform the world into a shimmering landscape of white, Vanessa gathered with Jonathan and Stephen for one final family moment that would encapsulate the essence of their shared journey. The hardships of the past, the bitter words, the painful regrets, and the tumultuous emotions had given way to a legacy of love that now shone as brightly as the stars overhead. In that quiet moment, gathered around a crackling fire in their modest living room, the family reflected on the transformative journey they had traversed together. Every smile, every tear, every whispered word of forgiveness had contributed to a tapestry of experiences that defined their existence, not in terms of material wealth, but in the immeasurable richness of human connection. Vanessa, whose once burning desire for a luxury car had symbolized an elusive dream, now understood that the truest luxury was the gift of unconditional love, a treasure that no hardship or misunderstanding could ever diminish. Jonathan, with a serene smile that belied the years of struggle etched into his face, recounted memories of the past with a quiet dignity. He spoke of the long nights spent in quiet determination, of the sacrifices made without expectation of reward, and of the deep, abiding hope that had sustained him through every trial. His words, imbued with both sorrow and pride, resonated deeply within Vanessa's heart, serving as a poignant reminder of the strength that lay at the core of their family's legacy. Stephen, now a young man on the brink of his own journey into adulthood, listened with wide, thoughtful eyes. His small jar of coins, once a symbol of humble sacrifice, had become a cherished heirloom, passed down as a reminder that true wealth was measured not by possessions, but by the capacity to give and to love. In his youthful yet profound understanding, he saw that every act of kindness, every shared moment of joy, was a building block in the foundation of a legacy that would endure long after the challenges of the past had faded into memory. As the evening deepened into night, Vanessa took a moment to address her family, a quiet, heartfelt declaration of gratitude and commitment. "I know now that every mistake, every hardship has led us to this moment," she said softly, her voice trembling with both emotion and resolve. "We may not have the luxury car I once dreamed of, but we have something far more precious, a bond forged through love, sacrifice, and the courage to forgive." Her words hung in the air, a promise that the legacy of their shared journey would continue to guide them, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The fire crackled, and the room filled with a serene silence, a silence that spoke of renewal, acceptance, and the timeless nature of true love. In that final chapter of their shared story, the family stood united, their hearts intertwined in a legacy that transcended the fleeting allure of material dreams. As they stepped into the winter night, the soft glow of the moon illuminating their path, Vanessa, Jonathan, and Stephen carried with them the unshakable knowledge that love was the greatest inheritance of all, a legacy that would shine brightly for generations to come.